Imagine you're having lunch and the next second you go through the roof. You fell into the salon on the first floor. That's what happens in China. Now, in China, people have been saying tofu dreg is bad for 20 years. And people in my comments are saying, oh, David, you're just taking old clips and you're just using them to justify something that is already, non-existent for the past decade or so, right? These propaganda shows, they're trying to claim that tofu dreg no longer exists in China. Well, it still exists in China. It's actually happening everywhere. It's just whether or not we can find the videos for them. Take a look at this one. So this is a building, it's smoking. Why is it smoking? Well, it's because a firework shot into the side of the building and it made a hole in it. Look at that. How can a firework create a large hole in a concrete building or whatever that material is? It has to be bricks or concrete, right? Look at that. It just made a big hole in it. That's crazy. That's tofu dreg, by the way. Yeah, so Constance says that's supposed to be concrete. Yeah, it's supposed to be concrete, apparently. I didn't know that that was supposed to be a concrete. So that's a recent one. Look at this knife. That is a household brand in China. The knife they were cutting wintermelon and it broke, snapped like that at the handle. That's the quality of Chinese steel. That's a tofu dreg. Honestly, if you don't know what tofu dreg means, it basically means it's an umbrella term now. That means subpar construction or subpar material. And you essentially have to deal with these things on a regular basis in China. Like a Chinese cleaver just snaps like that. What the heck? And you're cutting vegetables too. You're not cutting bones. It's pretty crazy. Look at this one. This is one of my favorite videos. So the workers are having lunch and then suddenly they end up in the pit. Right? Imagine you're having lunch one day and you're tired from working all morning and then you go inside the lunch hall or the cafeteria and you end up underground or whatever that part of it might be another floor, who knows. But yeah, look at these guys. They're just like, what happened to me? I just suddenly fell in. So I was like, well, they got people going inside the flooring. Imagine you're having lunch and the next second you go through the roof. You fell into the salon on the first floor. That's what happens in China. Oh man. So this took place on, where is it? December 5th, 2023. Or 2022, is it 2020? No, it's 2023. Yeah, so this happened last year. It's not 2024, but it's still really recent, right? So the idea of tofu dreg still exists in China. Imagine that, you're just doing your own business upstairs, and then suddenly you fall through the roof, or the ceiling, the ceiling. The shock, That's hilarious. So we got the ceiling drop, and then when you try to protest about tofu dreg in China, here's what happens. So this recently happened. This is September 7th. I'll show you the text first so that you guys know what we're talking about. Let me put on Google Translate so it will translate the thing for us. There we go. And I want to see if the shorts one has the translation. Okay, so this is September 7th, 2024. Says, Zhengzhou, Henan, the third phase of Sunak Airport Chengyuan, it's a tofu dreg building, was a shoddy project with serious reductions in specifications. The owners were defending their rights, and during the process, many owners were forcibly pushed into buses and taken away by the police. So these guys, they had a tofu dreg construction project that, went south because obviously you don't want to work with one of those tofu dreg buildings. They started to protest because, technically protesting is legal in China. It's just you get to protest once and then you disappear. But then they go protest and then the police come and they arrest them. Okay, that's what happens when you try to solve the problem of tofu dreg. Your result is they think you're trying to start provoking trouble and start a war in China. And so it's okay, so the reason why tofu dreg still happens all over China, and it's been happening for more than 2 decades, it's because the government doesn't actually want to solve this problem because they're corroborating with those developers who are cutting corners, right? So it's a whole chain of issues. that creates Tofu Dreg in China. That's why people are like, oh, David, Tofu Dreg's no longer a question in China. It's been solved decades ago. Actually, no, it's still happening very, very, very much and very frequently. Another example from the recent Hainan super typhoon season. So very dumb. I don't know why. China is super into building infrastructure, right? But why would you build wind turbines in a typhoon area? It's an island province south of China, and it's going to get a lot of hurricanes, typhoons, or whatever, earthquakes, etc. And then they're putting these giant wind turbines there because now they can say that China has infrastructure. The CCP loves to do this. They're touting, China has the best infrastructure. And then one typhoon later, everything collapses, right? Practicality. What is that? I don't know. I've never heard of it. Not in China, apparently. So the only thing that they've done over the years that's still kind of working is the high-speed bullet trains. But even that, the technology was stolen from Germany and Japan. And they're really running with it because that's, transportation, right? It's crazy. This recently happened too. So that's another Tofu Dreg project. You have this. This was from, this is also September. Actually, I'll do it like this. So this is a building that was completed in 2013. And this is the 18th floor of this building. So I believe this is like a parking lot area or something. But the walls started cracking. A building that was done 11 years ago is already showing signs of cracking. That is unbelievable. That's absurd, right? What the heck are we looking at? Question, why isn't there a culture of constructing things reliably in China, similar to Japanese and German auto and electronic culture? If the CCP cared about showing China as world power, wouldn't they care about these things? Great question from the Neo Serac Gamer, I believe. The question I already kind of answered, but basically in China, under the CCP, over the years, because there's so much fear-driven people to kind of fight for themselves, because there's been starvation, famine, there's been lack of how would you even describe it? There's a lot of political fear that people just kind of want to be by themselves, right? Everybody for themselves. There's a famous saying among Chinese people, which is, if not for thyself, then even heaven will punish you. Meaning that if I'm not doing everything for myself, then even the heaven will be punishing me. That's their thinking, right? So in this idea, they can kind of skirt around moral restrictions. They can really do a lot of things for the sake of just making money. And so even if that means cutting corners on buildings, even if that means they can speed up construction for 3 months ahead of completion schedule, just so they can say that we did it, and maybe the government could go around and say, oh wow, look at this, we did this completion, half of the time we spend on it. It doesn't really matter to them that the building's not going to last 20 years or 100 years. All it matters is that it looks like it's done, right? And then they can cut corners because you're almost like you're putting on a stage show. Whatever happens backstage, it doesn't really matter. What happens at the floor stage, at the front of the house, is what matters the most for them. I hope that answers it. Okay, I also have this one. Okay, this is actually pretty crazy. Again, this is from this year. This is from May 16th. So this residential complex belongs to Evergrande. For those of you who don't know, Evergrande recently went bankrupt, right? They're one of the largest developers in China, and they basically hold a lot of these buildings. A lot of them are Tofu Dreg building. So look at this. The residents here can easily lift up the tiles on the side of the road. Okay, so in what world can you just lift up tiles with your fingertips? That's crazy, isn't it? And then there's more. So sorry, it's a small video, but I'll explain what it is. This is the drain. So in the same complex, right? This is the drain. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but this drain here is half shut with whatever that is. It looks like to be some rebars and concrete. Imagine if you're the building area, like the city or region is raining. How is that supposed to drain the water? And what if you get things that clog there, like leaves or garbage or dirt or anything like that? That's not going to drain. So what was the point of building this drainage system in the community anyways? And then in that same video, so again, you know, these guys are just going around, they can just dig up the tiles, right? They got the sand underneath, doesn't even look that stable. And then they come across this part, which is like a wooden cover, like a plank board. And then when they lift it up, look what happens. It's a freaking shaft. It just got lefted there. Like I don't know what they did with this or where this goes. Is it supposed to be part of the sewage system? Is it supposed to run water, electricity? Who knows? But they just left it there, covered it with a wooden board, put sand over it, and then left it on top of the tiles, which again is just unstable. Like what the heck are we looking at here? This is crazy. That's Tofu Dreg again. So I'm giving you all these examples because it's absolutely bizarre for people to try to claim otherwise. Because you're not just worrying about the safety of the people. Obviously, that's the most important thing. But you're also just, like, how can you say to yourself, like, wake up every day as a developer and say, yeah, I'm absolutely doing my best to guarantee the people living here is having a best day of their life. No, they're like, every day we come out, we're going to make money. We got to screw these people over. From Brand 131 says, can consumers sue these companies for their shoddy work? You can try to sue. There's nobody that can stop you from suing. But whether or not they will let you win in court, that's a whole different question. From Schmokey Joined on Twitch says, do they workers who put up these not know that they're doing a bad job? Or are they just following instruction blindly? A lot of times because they want to just make the money, they're just simply following instructions and they don't really care enough either because they're not paid enough to care, so it's really sad, actually. Okay, back to our programming. This is pretty crazy. We have, let me go back a little bit. Okay, so this is a power line that just randomly collapsed. Like things like this just happen regularly in China. Sure, you could blame it on that they need to improve the infrastructure, but you know what else is probably the case? That these power lines, the stone cover, the columns, or I guess you call them the power beams, they were just not built with quality in mind. That's simply the case in China. Here's another protest from June 23rd of this year. This is a protest from Fujian province. And this is, again, another Tofu Dreg building that the developers basically abandoned in the sense that they used subpar material, again, to build it. So people are out here protesting. And again, what can they do? They can protest. They can be all on the streets. Here's some of the pictures that show the interiors of it. Like, it looks horrible. There's leaking. Everything's, there's like water leaking from the ceiling when it rains. So people protest, but what can you really do on top of that? Nothing. That's the reality in China. Oh yeah, okay, so this is another one from July 26th from another province in China. After a few rainy days, the ceiling started to crack holes. It started to leak, right? Started to grow mold. And that's a recently completed building too, right? Look at this. We got holes now. We got I don't even know what this yellowish liquid is. Is that mold? This is mold definitely here. You got the cracks, you got the leaks, just all over the place. These people went out and protested. Again, nothing really happened with them. No real business here. That was the wind turbine. And then this is just a road that just happens to be in China. Take a look at this. Just random sinkholes in the middle of nowhere. Roads are just built like that. Special quality, it seems. From Roar 2020 says, should the U.S. secretly fund anti-CCP separatist movements, aka uncontrollable armed protesters in most prominent cities? So here's the problem, right? If the United States, let's say they did a CIA color revolution type of thing like they did in Cuba, or in the Middle East, it's hard to do in China because the ideological control, the state propaganda, and the technological sort of totalitarianism is so complete that it's much harder for them to do that, in my view at least. Okay, this is not this one here. So this, I won't show you the video because I'm afraid the stream will get not copy striked, like, because there's like a violent thing, they might demonetize the stream. But I'll describe what this is. This is an old man. He noticed this like brick hole in the floor here, right, on the ground. And then he like went to go investigate. And then another old guy comes in and stands next to it. And then what happens is this whole area just sinks in. Maybe I'll show you this part. Yeah. So look, this whole area just sinks into the ground. And that man who was standing here, he like fell in. They say he's okay. So I guess, you know, he's fine. He just got injured. But yeah, the random ground just starts to fall like into sinkholes.